and welcome to Candidates Night 2015, sponsored by Close Up Club. Tonight we will welcome candidates for Lacey Township Committee, Mr. Tim McDonald, Mrs. Helen Delacruz, Mr. Michael Dos Santos, Mr. Greg Panza, Mr. Gary Quinn, and Mr. Barry Bender. 4 student panelists will each ask a question to the candidates, and they will respond in a pre-selected random order. Mr. McDonald, you will answer first this round with the question asked by Sarah Fidek.
Hi, my name is Sarah Fidek, and my question is, the Oyster Creek Generating Station is slated to close in 2019. Its closure will eventually mean a loss of tax revenue for Lacey Township. As an elected member of the Township Committee, what will you do to prepare Lacey for this loss in tax revenue over the next 4 years?
Thank you, Sarah. First, let me just thank the Close Up Club for inviting us here tonight for the Candidates Night, and I think you're going to see a good debate here going on. The power plant is the foremost issue in this town because it is going to close in 2019. Right now, it gives about $11 million to the township for its budget. What has happened is that the Pinelands Commission has made a distinct ruling allowing the gas lines to come up. That's great for Lacey because there are 2 companies, which I cannot name because they don't want to be in because they're in competition for each other, are looking at coming into Lacey. Now, that will mean jobs, and it'll help offset the lost revenue. The power plant will close in 2019. They took a decommission schedule of, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 years. So it's always going to be there. But the big issue is the dry storage. Lacey never agreed to keep the spent fuel rods here. They were always supposed to go wherever the government would say they were supposed to go, which was Yucca Mountain in Nevada. Unfortunately, that got tied up in lawsuits and got closed. So now we have to keep them here. The power plant has always had to pay some money for the storage. That money has never been released to Lacey or any other town that has nuclear power plants because they're stored in their dry storage. So we're hoping to get that money out. We're fighting like that. I know Mayor Quinn's been involved with that for a couple of years now, and that will also help offset. So with getting the gas company to come in and the dry storage fees, we should be okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Delacruz?
Thank you. I want to thank everyone in the Close Up Club and in the WLTS. Thank you for inviting us here tonight. When the power plant closes in 2019, the gross receipts and the property taxes will continue to be collected by Lacey Township. We are here and we say that we will help Exelon and we will help First Energy in their decommissioning, and this takes 10 years, which means also that during those 10 years, there will be even more jobs. And when the redevelopment happens, there will be even more jobs. So let's not give the doom and gloom type of outlook about the closing of the power plant. In the near future, no jobs will be lost because there will be even more. Now, for the site, possible energy sources will be solar, gas, wind, or the new nuclear energy. Thank you.
Mr. Dos Santos?
Can you repeat the question again?
The Oyster Creek Generating Station is slated to close in 2019. As an elected member of the Township Committee, what will you do to prepare Lacey for this loss in tax revenue over the next 4 years?
Thank you. I would just like to say thank you for having us here tonight. And I've had experience with the Oyster Creek Power Plant. I'm a plumber, pipe fitter, local line, and I think that it's important to have the decommissioning process be done properly, and that they run everything properly and decommissioning it and do something, and also in the future, put something good there that we can build upon and still keep our jobs and keep the tax revenue coming in to Lacey Township.
Thank you. Mr. Panza?
Sarah, thank you for your question. And it's a very good question. And it's something that should have been answered about 10 years ago. There should have been some type of decision made as to what's going there indefinitely. And to my knowledge, there isn't any. We shouldn't be talking about this right now. We should have been talking about it 10 years ago, all right? Gas or whatever decision that they make. And unfortunately, that decision hasn't been made. We have 4 short years before the power plant is going to be decommissioned and no longer there, no longer a viable source of tax revenue. So to answer your question, as the rest of the candidates here have said, the land will still be taxable. However, we're not going to be receiving the tax rate that we do now. Unfortunately, we would have to make the decision, and you're asking a question that, again, should have been made years ago. So to ask me a question as far as what should go there, unfortunately, it's a decision that has to be like a knee-jerk decision at this point. I would support gas. I don't have a problem with that, as long as as long as it's safe for the citizens and the residents of New Jersey, and it doesn't pose any environmental or safety threats. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn?
Again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the invitation here tonight. Mr. Zelensky, Channel 21, we certainly appreciate the opportunity. It's a great thing for the community. I probably have a little bit more insight into this question than the rest of the panelists sitting up here, since I am currently sitting as mayor on the governing body. What Mr. Panza said, what should have been decided 10 years ago, really doesn't come into play. 10 years ago, the community, or the township and the community, were really fighting to try and get the existing power plant to take and go for relicensing to stay here for an additional 20-year period. And it wasn't until shortly after the licensing was granted by the NRC that the plant made a decision, economic decision, to take in and shut down within a 10-year period versus going for the entire time frame that they were approved for their license. It was at that point in time that the governing bodies started moving towards trying to discuss with outside businesses and generation outfits to try and find another source that we can bring into the community. We've been working on that, and we've been working on it for a number of years. That's not public information that's put out there, in the public on a daily basis, which is the reason why a lot of people are not aware of it. As we get closer to 2019, we've had a lot more interest, and we have 2 very interested parties in building the gas generating plant on the site in the rear of the property, which was originally going to be the second nuclear plant years ago. The reason that they're so interested is because they know Oyster Creek is shutting down in 19, and they know that all the infrastructure is currently there, running through the New Jersey Pinelands to be able to take and utilize those items once the power plant shuts down. So it's a very attractive site to a lot of these plants. We've investigated solar, we've investigated wind. There's no market out there. Those outfits don't want to come here. But there is a strong market for gas, and we truly believe that we're going to be able to lock in a company to build another plant in the back as a gas generating plant. Problem being is that the gas generating plant doesn't take and create the amount of jobs that you would have with a nuclear plant. So we have roughly 650 people that are living in this area that work in that plant that we know are going to be displaced at some point in time in the future. And it's not going to happen in 19, because in 19, they're going to shut down the operation of the plant, but the plant itself is not going away. What Mr. McDonald said is very true. We're working currently to try and get money from the federal government that we should be getting for many years now to take and be the host to a spent fuel storage facility, which we didn't agree to when we first took that plant on as a Lacey Township plant. I think we're going to have success in that. We're working with other communities throughout the country, because that's an issue that not only affects Lacey Township, but it affects a lot of different communities that have nuclear power plants in their community itself. As far as the $11 million goes, it's not going to go away in 2019. We know that that money is still protected at the state level. Our local legislators are going to do everything they can to fight to make sure that that stays in the hands of Lacey Township residents, and at some point in time, we're hopefully going to be able to replace that with something else if the New Jersey legislature decides to make a change. So it's not doom and gloom, just as Ms. Dela Cruz said. It will be something that we'll work our way through. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bender?
Yes, thank you very much. Again, thanks to all of you for having us here. For you guys to participate in government the way you're participating tonight is a really wonderful thing. As far as the power plant goes, I have a little different opinion from what some people have said here. My understanding is the reason that Oyster Creek is closing is that there's a verbal agreement between Amergen and the state of New Jersey, whereby they did not have to build cooling towers, and it's part of that agreement for not building the cooling towers, they agreed to close in 2019. As far as the monies that come into the town, somewhere between 11 and 12 million dollars. I'm not sure exactly when that would stop flowing in, at what point that would stop flowing in. The jobs obviously will go. But to make a point on the funds for the spent fuel rods, that topic, and I'm speaking from knowledge, that topic was brought up in the Township Committee campaign in 2004 by Jim Letelier, and nothing was done on it for a very, very long period of time. That should have been worked on from way back then. I personally had a conversation with then newly elected Senator Robert Menendez at the Crab's Claw Inn discussing just that point. The host community funds is money that's collected on every person who pays an electric bill that's associated with nuclear power, and my understanding it's in the billions of dollars, and it was slated to go to Yucca Mountain, but with the shutting down of Yucca Mountain, absolutely, we deserve it here in Lacey Township, and we need to fight to get those funds here. As far as what will happen to the site, there hasn't been much transparency on that. My understanding now, learning tonight, is that there are talks with gas generating stations, and that's a wonderful thing, because if that site is completely abandoned and there's no power generated there, you have infrastructure that's worth billions of dollars that carries that electricity to the various locations it needs to go to. If the state were to abandon that infrastructure and let it rust and fall apart, we'd be throwing billions of dollars in the garbage, and that should not happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Here's Mike Matei with the next question.
Over the past 20 years, Lacey has become increasingly populated. New businesses and homes have been established, and this increase in population can cause many safety risks. What is your plan to further improve the safety of township residents?
Mrs. Dela Cruz with your response.
Thank you. Well, we have to have a study on how we can do that. But anyway, as far as the increase of safety, that is a concern for everyone that we should cooperate in doing. The traffic should be where they should go, and the very lights should be where they should be doing. And so when it comes to the safety of our township, yes, we do need a study to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dos Santos?
How you doing? Thank you. This is a good question. I think that in order to have the safety, we should try to work with the police department and do our best to try to help the citizens of Lacey live in a better community in that aspect. And sorry about that, I'm a little nervous up here. It's my first time rolling like this. Blank. Sorry, yeah, that's it.
Okay,
That's
thank
it,
you.
sorry.
Mr. Panzo?
Thank you, Sarah. As some of you may be aware, I'm in public safety myself. I'm a police officer. I'm also a volunteer firefighter here in Lacey Township. I serve with the Fort River Fire Company. So if there's anybody on this panel that knows the needs and what the township residents need as far as public safety, it's me. Right now, the public safety here in Lacey Township is being neglected. Unfortunately, those funds are being spent elsewhere, and our police department's understaffed, and the fire department's In Lacey Township, we have a truck that's from 1968, which has been, which we're trying desperately to take out of service so that we, and get another truck, so that we can provide services better to the community. And from what I understand, we've met some extreme resistance from the committee. So things as far as public safety are being put on the back burner. And unfortunately, times are changing here in actually the world, okay? You know, I'm sure you guys are aware you have lockdown drills now, okay? And it's a major concern, and you know, bad things happen in all over the place now. And it's unfortunate that we have to train for those things, but if we neglect the funding and the resources for the police departments, our response time, or the response time for the police department is going to be greater. And God forbid something like that happens here in Lacey Township, I cringe to think about what the scenario is, or what could happen. So, unfortunately, again, the public safety here in Lacey Township is being neglected. And where the funds should be placed with the police departments, with the fire departments, isn't there. Both Barry and I are looking at taking measures to reroute money from other places within the municipal budget and be able to restore equipment and apparatus and personnel to all those companies. I mean, both Barry and I took an interest, went around to the fire departments and spoke to some of the members. And I know the department out west, they told us 1 length of 5-inch hose. That's your supply line going from your hydrant to your fire truck. So we want to make sure that they are properly equipped and attention is brought and funding is brought back to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn?
Public safety is a key item in this community, and it always has been, and it always will be, whoever's sitting up on the dais in the governing body. Again, I have to disagree with Mr. Panza. You know, I oversee the police department, I oversee the emergency services in the community, and I've been doing it for a number of years now. And about 3 years ago, we brought a new police chief in who I think has gotten very well known in the community. He was one of our former lieutenants, Chief Paprada. And I want to address the issue with the department being understaffed, because the department is fully staffed to the levels that the chief wants them staffed at. We've had turnover, we've had some retirements, but we automatically go out and rehire people immediately. And we hire the best. We're a civil service community, and we do everything that we can in our power to make sure that we hire the best. If you were to go and speak with any of our police officers that are under the umbrella of Chief Paprada, the camaraderie over there, the hard work over there that they're doing is second to none. And even Prosecutor Coronado from the county would be telling you exactly the same thing. From 2006 to 2012, we had a lot of crime in town, and I was talking to the chief as recently as last week, and the statistics have changed drastically, where the crime and the residential burglaries have pretty much been cut in half on 2013 and 14. So they're doing an outstanding job, and I certainly, I'm not happy when somebody criticizes our police department, because I think that it's probably the money that we spend the best in our budget. As far as the fire companies go, there's no doubt we want to take and provide every possible thing that we can for fire companies, but keeping in mind that we also have to create a balance with our residents. We create a budget every year. We do everything that we can to try and buy as much as we can. We have 3 fire companies in town. We have 2 ambulance squads in town. And to go out and buy a truck for each of those departments on an annual basis is extremely expensive. I was at the firehouse last night with Committeeman Giuliano. I make a point to go to the fire department every other month with one of my fellow committee members so that we can discuss concerns that they have, discuss what they're looking for down the road. And last night we had the discussions with them, and there's no doubt they're looking for a truck to replace one of their trucks, a 1968 truck. But they do have a number of newer trucks, including a ladder truck, which we purchased probably 7 years ago for $880,000. So when you buy big ticket items like that, it's putting a tremendous burden on the taxpayers. So it's a balance that we have to create to make sure that we take and purchase what we need so that these men and women are safe going into the fires that they go into, safe getting to the fires. But at the same time, we have to keep the community, the residents of the community, as a priority as well. We are moving forward. We have a plan in place now to put a vote out to the public next year to let the public vote on whether we should buy a couple trucks at one time. But we by no means would cut any emergency service equipment out. Priority number 1 is safety. Thank you.
Sarah, this is the second time that Mr. Quinn has brought my name up, and I didn't refute the first time. This time I am, okay? Unfortunately, at these meetings that Mr. Quinn is having with the fire department just recently started happening this year, okay? Ironically enough, it's an election year. So if Mr. Quinn is saying
Mr.
that he...
Penza, I'm sorry, but we're not doing the rebuttal format this year.
Okay,
So
well,
save your
all right, well, then
remarks for your
I'll talk to
closing
the rest of,
statements.
that's okay, but I deserve the opportunity to refute.
Yes, and save it for the closing statements, and then you can say what you want.
Okay, well, like I said, real quick, you know,
We're gonna
these meetings
move on
just
now.
started, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Bender, would you care to respond?
Yeah, I did not give that question to that young man, but that's number one on my hit parade, is the safety and the welfare of every citizen of Lacey Township. And I could just tell you point blank, in looking at the budget and comparing different years of the budget, the funding for the police department is down through retirements, through attrition, by an enormous amount of money. But the funny thing is, at the same time that the police department salaries are down, the salaries inside town hall have gone up by the amount that's down and even more, which to me is not setting the right priorities, number one right there. The volunteer companies, these are men and women who volunteer their own time, and for them to have to go through the hassles that they go through to get new equipment, I've spoken with people on the volunteer squads, is as far as I'm concerned, ridiculous. The township needs to look at better ways of allowing the volunteer squads to be able to get their equipment in a more timely fashion. And on top of that, I've lived in this town for 26 years, and I don't believe in that 26-year period of time I've ever seen the coordination of our emergency services ever addressed. And that's a serious issue that needs to be addressed, because maybe the squad in Lenoka needs a particular truck, but they may have that truck in Forked River. Maybe there's a better way of sharing these resources instead of having them put redundantly in various locations. And as far as I know, coordination or who makes what call, who goes out to Bamber when Bamber can't cover, hasn't been addressed in the 26 years that I've lived here. So safety is number one. That's the reason government exists as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Yes, thank you. I've lived in this town for 30 years, and I've seen the trends, crime up, crime down, and so forth. And over the last 3 years, in my opinion, the crime has gone down because of the way the chief has implemented his programs and things of that nature. As far as the fire departments go and getting equipment to them, that's always been a problem. We are a small town with 3 fire companies, and as Mr. Quinn said, these are huge ticket items. So I'm really in favor of working with the fire departments and getting grants and things like that. I've talked to a couple of firefighters, and there are grants out there to help offset some of these costs. So I think it would behoove the community and the township committee to get involved with grant writing and show them how to do it the right way, so that they can get some of this money to offset some of these costs. I think that the township, for the most part, safety-wise, is pretty good. Can we be better? Absolutely. So we just have to continue to work in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophia Perry will present the next question.
Hi, my name's Sophia Perry. Currently, a White Castle restaurant is being constructed in Lacey Township on Route 9. Over the last few years, we have seen the expansion of name brand businesses in town. What is your plan to continue the growth of the economy of Lacey, and how do you feel about the growing number of chain restaurants and stores?
Mr. Panza with your response.
Thank you. Well, first of all, several years ago, we were promised that Home Depot and Walmart and many of the big box stores would control the tax rate here in town. And unfortunately, the tax rate has increased, and we didn't take advantage of the big box stores stabilizing taxes. So, unfortunately, that's a double-edged sword. One, the stores and the businesses would create jobs. However, like I was saying, the big box stores your Home Depot, your Walmart, they're, one, using our resources, and they're the police departments, the fire department, and they're getting tax breaks, okay? So I really don't, I'm kind of on the fence with having more stores come in. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. Strategically, if we can place them in places that wouldn't congest traffic, I'd be for it. So, to answer your question, I'm on the fence about that. So, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn?
Again, the information regarding this, I'm probably more aware because I've been on the governing body for a number of years. When I first got on the governing body, this was one of the items that we really were looking to try and take and move forward in the community. We were kind of a mom and pop little town that had a lot of mom and pop shops. And we decided, the governing body decided probably 10 years ago that it was time to try and start bringing in different businesses to the community that were going to bring in, number one, tax dollars, number two, jobs, and the third factor was the convenience for residents to be able to shop within the town versus going outside of the community, whether it be to Manahawkin or Stafford or Toms River. We were successful in getting a couple of them, but we were successful in getting the ones that we wanted, and we're not looking to expand Lacey Township into any other big box stores. The issue with regards to the taxes, if you go and look at the overall tax dollars that we collect in the community on an annual basis, if we were not to have those stores in town, we'd be giving up a couple $100,000, which, at the end of the day, is something that certainly goes towards reducing the overall tax rate for the residents of this community. We get 16% of it at the township level. The school district gets 62%. So if you have a $300,000 or $400,000 tax income, that's a nice chunk of money that's going into the regular operating budget for any entity, whether it be ourselves, the schools, or the county. White Castle is a business that we kind of had some issues with when they first came in. We had some issues basically because they were building the store close to a residential area. We challenged them. We ended up in court, and we ended up coming to a solution that was agreeable to both sides so that the stores can operate during specific hours. None of those stores get tax credits. There's not a business in this town that gets tax credits from Lacey Township in any way whatsoever, other than currently we're looking at COA units that are coming in that possibly will, if they ever get the funding for the job itself. So there's no tax credits to anyone. We had that happen years ago with the nursing home up on Route 9. The existing committee was opposed to it, and we would not in any way whatsoever enter into an agreement with any business to come in here and get tax credits and have the residents of this community pick up the difference in the taxes themselves. So that's a non-issue as far as we're concerned. Would I like to see other changes? I'd like to see changes with regards to other things that could happen to allow the small mom and pop businesses to be able to operate in this town. I know back at the last couple elections, there was stuff thrown around that we got to bring more professional businesses in. We are getting them. We're getting doctors in here. We're getting a couple urgent cares in here. But we want to create different types of zoning so that the small mom and pop operations have the ability to take and utilize their existing sites with different types of uses. We've given them the ability now to take and build residential over their commercial as long as they meet the criteria. Those are the things we have to consider moving forward into the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bender?
Personally, I moved in here 26 years ago, and I like the mom and pop stores. I wasn't real happy when the large big box stores moved in myself, because, and I'll give you the difference. South of us and north of us, you've got Toms River and you have Manahawkin. Toms River has Route 37, Manahawkin has Route 72. We have Route 9, which is stretched to its limit, and adding more big box, if you will, high volume stores on little Route 9 really causes issues in our town. It makes our town much more congested than it needs to be. My feeling is that we need to look at somewhere in town where we could attract a company that has quote, quote, professional positions, where people like yourself coming out of Lacey High School, when you finish your college careers and come home, there'll be a career for you, not a job, that pays you part-time at Home Depot or Walmart and gives you no benefits. Okay, I think we need to look at bringing, professional companies that will hire our own, graduates from Lacey High School when they get out of college, which whatever degrees they get, where they would hire them here, they would have a full-time job with benefits, et cetera. That would be a Monday through Friday operation, and then on the weekend, there's nobody there. I think that's very important. As far as the number of restaurants, when I moved in here, I think there was Mario's and there was Burger King. And we used to have to drive and go wherever you had to go to get if you wanted something different. I don't think there's anything you can't get in Lacey Township now. And adding more, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't help things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. If you want to have a vibrant economy in Lacey Township, you've got to have diverse stores and places for people to shop and go to and to work in too. So these big box stores have brought that. And that's good for the economy, and it's good for the people in Lacey Township. I think that have we reached our limit? Probably so in bringing the big box stores in, but I think when you bring the big box stores in, other entities will come in and support that. And I think that's good for Lacey. In this environment, with interest rates as low as they are, we should be telling people not to come into Lacey because they can build much cheaper. But with the economy the way it is and what's going on at the state and the federal level, it's inhibiting these people. I think as soon as the economy turns around, you're going to start seeing a lot of these little entities coming in, and I think people are going to be proud of what you see in Lacey. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Dela Cruz?
Thank you. Before I answer that question, I want to backtrack a little bit on the previous question when I said about traffic light and safety. We need to have a traffic light at the corner of Lake Barnegat Drive and Haines Street. It is very difficult when you are going, you want to come here like tonight. It's hard to make a left turn because of the traffic back and forth. So it seems that that site itself is like an accident waiting to happen. I would like to see that we work for a traffic light there. Now, to answer your question, I am in favor of businesses coming here in town, so long as they don't impact the quality of life of the residents around them. Very noise, or the lighting, or the hours that it's in operation. Yes, I am in favor of businesses coming in town because they give us new jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dos Santos?
Thank you. That's a good question. Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of having new businesses come into town. It brings the economy up for us here, brings outside money in, and I think it's a good way for maybe put like new restaurants and mom and pop stores to build our economy. I think it's a good way to do it.
Thank you. Rachel Cripps for the next question.
Hi, I'm Rachel Cripps. Drugs continue to be an issue in Lacey Township and Ocean County. What are your plans and ideas that you would institute to combat the ongoing problems of drug abuse and drug-related crimes in Lacey Township?
Mr. Panza with your response.
Very, very good question. It's in,
No, Mr. Panza.
oh, who's up?
Mr. Panza.
Oh, you're up.
All right, I'll go with that then. First, yeah, that's all right. First off, I believe our police department should have a K-9 unit. And I know Mr. Letelier has been at the township meetings in favor last year of a K-9 unit. And to date, no movement has been made to get that. Again, the funding, going back to the last question, the funding is not there for the police department to have a K-9 unit. I'd like to see a school resource officer in here, okay, patrolling the hallways. It's just not there. So, should Barry and I get in, one, the police department's getting a K-9 unit. We're not gonna wait an hour for the Ocean County Sheriff's Department to get here while our officer's on a motor vehicle stop or to search something. It's not happening. So K-9 unit, I'd like to see a school resource officer. I'd like a little bit more, I know that, and I'll give them prompts here. Mayor Quinn has been very instrumental with the Red Night Out program, along with some of the other community leaders and the chief of police, educating everyone on drugs and things of that nature. So I'd like to see more of those programs accessible and available to the residents of the community and our youth. So, thank you.
Mr. Quinn?
Drugs are definitely a problem. Drugs are not something that only Lacey Township is dealing with. It's a problem that's countywide, statewide, that certainly every community is trying to take and fight in their own way. Having said that, you know, we have taken and seen in the last 2 years, we've seen a tremendous turnaround in the amount of drug overdoses that we've had. And that's really, you know, due to not only our officers, but officers throughout other police departments throughout the state, you know, having the ability to take and utilize the Narcan that's now available when they're sent out for somebody that's overdosing. So that's, you know, accolades to the state of New Jersey and to the counties for putting that plan into effect. We try and be as proactive as we can when it comes to the drug problem in town. We work with the schools. We don't have a resource officer in the schools, but we do have police officers walking through these schools, each and every school on a regular basis, not only to take and build relationships with the kids, but to try and notice if there's any problems that are going on. Mr. Panz and I have to agree, you know, canine dog would be nice. There's no doubt about it, but a canine dog, obtaining one in the community is not as easy as we would all like to think it is. Unfortunately, it's an item that we have to take and contractually, you know, go into a contract with the police department and have them take and agree who's going to take and handle the dog, who's going to take and keep the dog in their home. They have to be paid for that. So there's a long process you have to go through in order to be able to utilize that. And I think that that's something that if the chief is in favor of it, that once we get the contract negotiations done with the current, you know, police DBA, we'll hopefully be able to put that into place and move forward. Until that happens, we've been using the county dogs are available to us. The other thing that we have to really try and accomplish is we have to find a way to work. The school community does a great job for us. They you know, find the situations that we take and deal with on behalf of the schools, but there's been a back and forth type of situation over the last couple of years on having dogs come into the schools and us being permitted to bring dogs into the schools, because we, as a township, don't have that ability. Our police department doesn't have that ability unless we're invited in by the administration. So we have to try and overcome that. And we recognize the fact that the administration has to overcome some issues that they have with the parents of the school community. So there's different variables in play that have to be resolved in order to be able to bring dogs into the school. Would that be something that could offset the problem? We did it, I think, twice, and in the 2 times we found something. 1 time we didn't find it another time. So there's chances that could help and offset some of the issues in the schools. But we're doing everything we can in the community to try and fight the problem, and I think we've had a lot of success in the last 2 years with that.
Thank you. Mr. Bender?
Thank you. As I was saying, that's a very, very good question. As everyone knows, there's a drug epidemic in Ocean County. I mean, it's everywhere. We're showing up at the top of the list on various state charts as far as drug use by our young people, and it's not a good thing at all. To me, I would go back to, we go to New York City before the Mayor Giuliani was there. 42nd Street was a horrible, horrible mess. People were afraid to walk down that street, the crime and just the nonsense that went on. And he corrected that by putting boots on the ground, meaning police officers on the ground patrolling, and it straightened out the problem. I think the problem could be straightened out or could be helped much if we put more boots on the ground in the police department. That's my feeling. Another point to be made, though, is that unless you're a student who participates in team sports, there's really not a lot to do in Lacey Township when you're done with school, okay? We're very, very focused in this town on team sports, baseball, basketball, etc. And for many kids, there's really nothing to do. And when there's nothing to do, that leaves the door open to get into trouble. And I think there needs to be some effort made to get some kind of program started. I know we have a skateboard park, etc., but there needs to be something done to attract young people who aren't involved in team sports. where there's some place to go and some place to do things, so the temptation's not there to get started on drugs to begin with. But that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. Drugs are an epidemic, not only here in Lacey and Ocean County, but throughout the country. But to fight drugs, it's got to start at the grassroots level. To me, you really got to start in the elementary schools. I remember Nancy Reagan had to just say no to drugs. And it was very, very effective because they went into the schools, they did those programs for the kids. And it's got to be from a young age all the way up. Also, there's got to be a cooperative effort between the school district and the township committee and the police department to work together to to resolve these issues. I'm all for a canine dog if we can do it and it'll work and it's effective. I think that would be great. But again, it's got to go back to the grassroots efforts of getting into these elementary schools and talking about drugs. The old Nancy Reagan thing of just say no, I think was extremely effective. And I just think that's what we got to do, get back to the grassroots. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Dela Cruz?
Thank you. I want everyone to understand that drug addiction is a chronic disease of the brain. It can be prevented, and there is a treatment to it. There is a law in New Jersey, and it's called the Opioid Antidote and Overdose Protection Law, which provides protection and immunity to anyone who calls 911. Like, for example, if you were to see one of your friends overdosing, be sure that you call 911. Don't let him or her be alone there to die. Call 911, and that's where you are protected by that law. When it comes to this fight against drug addiction, in order for one to be effective, you have to get rid of the stigma. Because it's only then that you can help a patient or any person objectively and not being judgmental. When Mike DeSantos and I will be at the committee, we will work very hard with the schools, with our civic organizations, our churches. We'll work, of course, with the police. The Municipal Alliance are doing a great job in their work against drug abuse. So for us all to be fighting against drug abuse, just say no. We should be very motivated to teach all our children, not just children, because drug abuse also occurs in seniors, in every walks of life. And so, as I said, we will work hard with the schools, with the police, even with the Board of Health, so that there can be make them more accessible for the Narcan, for the people to use when the time comes that it needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dos Santos?
Thank you. That's a good question. Basically, like Helen said, we would get in, we would try to work with the community leaders, the schools, the police officers, maybe see about if kids could try to get involved in sports or something, and maybe get involved in instruments. And maybe this way they could probably succeed further in life and not get involved with drugs. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right, at this time, we will be given the opportunity to give a closing statement. Mr. Quinn, your closing statement.
Thank you again. To close up, thank you for the opportunity, Channel 21. It really is a nice thing to do every year to try and get your message out there so each of the candidates has the opportunity to really show what their purpose of running for. Just a couple things I just want to touch on. Ms. Dela Cruz talked about a light on Blake Barnegat Drive and Haines Street, and that's, I know Helen hasn't been with us for a few years, but that's something that the committee has moved forward on. We haven't done a study, and we're in the process of moving forward to try and find the funding to put that into place, so that is something that the safety will be there. Mr. Panza and I are going to disagree on certain things, but that's we all have opinions, and I certainly respect him and his opinions and everyone else on this governing body. So it's a nice thing to see everybody up here, and I applaud you all for signing up for it. A couple things I certainly, a lot of discussions tonight have taken place about the police department. I am very, very honored to sit on the committee, and I've been extremely honored to be the liaison to the police department over the years. Chief Peprada, in my opinion, is second to none. He does an outstanding job. And if anyone has any concerns about the police department, his door is always open, and he's always available to speak with anybody in the community, just as he does with a lot of stuff that goes on over here at the schools. We've had a couple rough years in the past couple of years. We had Superstorm Sandy. We've got issues with drugs. We've got tax issues. But I think we've turned the corner. I think we're going to start seeing things get a little bit better as we move forward. But we still have a lot of stuff on the horizon. We talked about stuff tonight, the power plant, the spent fuel storage. We didn't touch on dredging. We haven't touched on COA. There's a lot of issues that the governing body deals with on a regular basis that are very important to the community, and they're issues that I think each and every one of us up here has a certain amount of knowledge on. I said earlier, I certainly have a little bit more knowledge because I've been honored to sit on the governing body, and that's something that I'm here tonight, in the debate because I am running for re-election this year. I'm hoping that I'm re-elected on November 3rd along with my running mate Tim McDonald here. And that we can move forward and continue to do the work that we've started doing and try and make Lacey Township the great community that it truly is. I love the community. I've been in the community for 37 years, and anything that I do, I always make sure that I take and consider all the residents of this community first. So, to each and every one of you, thank you again for the opportunity. It was a pleasure being here tonight, and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bender, your closing statement?
Certainly. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you and everyone else in the Close-Up Club for hosting this event. As I said, the civic contribution that you make in doing what you're doing tonight, I mean, there's a lot of things you could be doing, but it's a very important thing that you're doing tonight. And basically, what you're allowing us to do is get our message out to the people of Lacey Township by asking us the wonderful questions that you've asked us. I'd also like to take the time to thank the people from WLTS TV 21 who are here filming the whole event. I know they do a wonderful job here in the school, and I watch them an awful lot on the television. To start off with, I'd like to quote two of my favorite lines from the Declaration of Independence. And the first one I'm sure everyone is very familiar with. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The second little piece from the Declaration of Independence that I personally like is where it says that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government. Along those lines, in my 12 years of involvement in the political process in Lacey Township and throughout Ocean County, I've learned that it is not the agenda that our two major parties, political parties, use. When all that matters is what lawyers, engineers, and other professionals are going to get the high-paying jobs that are being paid with taxpayer dollars here in town, when that's the most important thing, something is wrong. How many residents in Lacey Township, in your feeling, can honestly say that they feel everyone in Lacey Township is treated equally? How many residents in Lacey Township feel that their local government has their unalienable rights as the top priority? I don't think you're going to, well, we'll find out on November 3rd, that's for sure. According to the Declaration, if what I feel is true, it's time to institute new government. My running mate Greg Panza and I are focused on moving our local government's, I'm running out of time already, direction to its most basic level, which is the security and welfare of the people of Lacey Township, and that'll be our whole entire, well, not entire platform, but the basis of our platform will be. We need to be more secure, beef up our police departments, our volunteer squads, and everything else takes a backseat to that until those things are addressed properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. I want to thank Channel 21 and the Close-Up Club for inviting us out here for the debate. I see a bright future for Lacey, very bright. In my walking and talking out there, meeting people, these people love this town. They really love this town. I've always thought that, but it's been reinforced. And I think with Mayor Quinn's lead and what we're doing down there at the power plant and working hard to get that taken care of, which is the major stumbling block for Lacey's success, if we can get past that, and I believe that we will, the future is incredibly bright. Are we going to have bumps along the road? Is everything perfect? No, of course not. We will work it out. We'll get them together. The police department is doing a great job. I just think that the future is bright, and I think we got to continue to work hard. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be especially hard to get things done in the environment that we're headed into with the state and so forth like that. So I'm just going to ask everyone to come out on November 3rd, support myself and my running mate Gary Quinn at the election. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Delacruz?
Thank you. I want to thank again the Close-Up Club and everyone in the WLTS. Thank you for inviting us here tonight. I've been here in Lacey since 1980. I came here with my husband and 2 children when they were even kindergarten and first graders. And I'm very proud of our children. I want to thank the teachers of the Lacey schools because they did have a lot to do with the fine upbringing of my children. I'm running for office because I want to see an even better and greater Lacey. Michael Dos Santos and I plan to return the balance on the township, a form of government that represents all the people, a 2-party system with both parties represented. This is a healthier and better form of government. Democracy cannot flourish in a one-party system. In a one-party system, we also want to conduct an operational audit, especially when it comes to the budget, so that we can identify cost savings. We want to work with the schools and the rest of the community to fight drug abuse. We want to return civility and respect to the township committee. And we want to create a local ethics board. My friends, for the 3 times that I was a committee woman, for each year of those terms, there always been new opportunities, new challenges, and yes, changes for each year. But what has not changed or will not change are my values. What has not changed or will not change is my love for Lacey. And what will never change is my love for my Lord, who guides me to do the right thing, to do my best to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dos Santos?
Thank you. And again, thank you for having us here tonight. Very good event. I would like to say I've lived in Lacey 26 years. I graduated in 1995 from Lacey High School. And I'm running for committee because I would like to give back to the community and help out make Lacey better. I have a 3-month-old daughter who will be growing up here in Lacey, and I'd like to provide for her and all the citizens of Lacey Township and try to make Lacey a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Panza, with your closing statement?
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to start by thanking the Lacey Township Close-Up Club for inviting us here tonight, the residents in the audience and at home, and the candidates here that took the time to attend this debate. Lacey Township has become a town of missed opportunities, which has set forth a snowball effect that is growing out of control. Two of our opponents have served on the committee and have had multiple opportunities over the years to control spending. Municipal taxes have gone up 260% in the past 12 years. Additionally, taxes are being collected at 98%. The township has had 2 options: control spending by making cuts within the municipal budget, or to raise our taxes. Our opponents year after year have chosen the easy path, which is to raise taxes. This approach is not only unreasonable, but unfair. Additionally, one of our opponents has chosen to blame the school board for the increase in taxes. Though the school board does play a part in your tax rate, it certainly should not be used as an excuse for the municipal tax rate. My running mate Barry Bender and I have looked at the municipal budget very carefully. We're proposing a minimum of a 3% cut throughout the municipal budget across the board. This excludes public safety and would not require the layoff of a single municipal employee. These cuts will cause a minimum of a savings of $250,000 per year. We also support sharing the services of non-essential municipal employees with surrounding towns. It is time that the department heads at the municipal level are held accountable and are forced to make responsible decisions of how their money is spent. Mr. McDonald attempted to dispute my concerns of the taxes here in town at the Chamber of Commerce meeting last week. He said, I moved here in 1985. The biggest complaint then was taxes. It's 2015. You know what the biggest complaint is? Taxes. You know what it'll be in 30 years? Taxes. I was taken by surprise by these comments. However, it is clear just how out of touch he is with your needs and concerns. Lacey Township just went through a very aggressive and in many cases unfair tax reassessment. Our residents were treated with disrespect by the current tax assessor. I sat in tax court and listened to the Sandy survivors and those on fixed incomes. In some cases, watched them crying. Those images stuck with me. So when I hear comments like that and find out the tax assessor that treated our residents with such disrespect was not only appointed for 4 more years, but was also given a raise, I take it personally, not only by a candidate for Lacey Township Committee, but also a resident. This campaign is going to come down to who is trustworthy and loyal. As independent candidates, it is true, Barry and I lack campaign funding. We cannot afford to put pencils and rulers in bags and hang it on your door. We cannot afford to plaster the town with lawn signs and billboards. We can't afford to send out fancy mailers, which will soon be coming out. Both the Democrats and Republicans can and will. However, their loyalty lies with political donors first. We need to stop supporting political parties and vote by what the individual candidate is going to bring to the table. How are they going to make Lacey affordable? How will they improve public safety and protect the residents? Neither political party has come up with any type of plan.
Okay,
Or
Mr.
if they
Panza.
have, they just won't be able to deliver.
Thank you.
Barry, real quick, we have both
Mr.
signed a
Panza, we're
contract
closing.
and vowed to serve the
Finishing up
residents
here.
by the terms and conditions. It
Mr.
is
Panza,
available
please finish your
for
statement.
those in attendance right now here at this meeting.
All right,
Thank
thank you. And thank you all for attending tonight's event. And to our viewing audience, please remember to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd.